Imagine this. You've been away from home for 3 years. 3 long, brutal years, crossing an ocean, begging for supplies, surviving storms that nearly killed you twice. But now, finally, your ship pulls into the harbor of a small island off the coast of what will one day be called North Carolina. You're coming home to your family, your daughter, your granddaughter, the first English child ever born in America. But when you step off that boat, no one is there. The houses? Dismantled. The fort? Gone. 117 men, women, and children, including your own flesh and blood, have vanished. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no graves. The only clue? A single word carved into a wooden post. Croatoan. This isn't a horror movie. This actually happened. And after more than 400 years, we still don't know what that word truly meant or what happened to those people. This is the story of the lost colony of Roanoke, America's oldest unsolved mystery.
To understand Roanoke, you have to understand the world in the 1580s. England was late to the colonization game, embarrassingly late. Spain had already conquered massive territories in Central and South America. They were pulling out gold by the shipload. Portugal was dominating trade routes across Africa and Asia. France had its eyes on Canada. And England? England was a second-tier power, and Queen Elizabeth I knew it. She needed a foothold in the New World, not just for gold or glory, but for survival. If Spain kept growing unchecked, England could be swallowed whole. Enter Sir Walter Raleigh. Now, Raleigh was one of those larger-than-life Elizabethan figures, explorer, poet, soldier, spy, and the Queen's absolute favorite. Elizabeth gave him a royal charter. Go find land in America, claim it for England, and make it work. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Raleigh himself never actually set foot on Roanoke Island, not once. He was the money and the vision. Other men would do the bleeding. In 1584, Raleigh sent an expedition to scout the coast of modern-day North Carolina. They came back raving about the land. Fertile soil, friendly natives, abundant fish, they called it paradise. Raleigh named the entire region Virginia, after Elizabeth, the so-called Virgin Queen, and he immediately began planning the first English colony in America. The first attempt came in 1585, and it was a disaster.
Act 1 continued. The first failure. Raleigh sent about 108 men to Roanoke Island under the command of Ralph Lane, a military man with a military mind. This wasn't meant to be a permanent settlement of families. This was a garrison, a beachhead, soldiers and adventurers looking for gold and a passage to the Pacific. But here's where it gets interesting. They didn't bring enough food. They didn't know how to farm the unfamiliar land, and their relationship with the local Algonquian people, the Secatan, the Croatan, the Roanoke tribe, started well but deteriorated fast. See, the English had a fatal flaw in their approach to the New World. They expected the native people to feed them. When the natives couldn't or wouldn't, the English took what they wanted by force. Ralph Lane actually launched a preemptive attack against a native chief named Wingina, beheading him after suspecting a plot against the colony. And this is the part that changes everything about the Roanoke story, because every English person who came to this island afterward was inheriting the consequences of that violence. By June 1586, the colonists were starving and terrified. When Sir Francis Drake happened to sail by after raiding Spanish colonies in the Caribbean, they literally begged him for a ride home. Every single one of them left. The first Roanoke colony was abandoned. But Raleigh wasn't done.
Act 2. The second colony. In 1587, Raleigh tried again, but this time the plan was completely different. Instead of soldiers, he sent families, men, women, and children, 117 of them. The idea was simple. People with families have something to fight for. They won't abandon the colony. They'll build. They'll stay. Leading them was John White, an artist and mapmaker who had been part of the earlier expedition. White was no soldier. He was a painter, a quiet, thoughtful man who had spent his previous time on Roanoke drawing detailed watercolors of the plants, animals, and native people. Now, these paintings are incredibly important. They're some of the only visual records we have of indigenous life on the Atlantic coast before European colonization destroyed it.
They're preserved in the British Museum to this day. But here's the cruel irony. The man who documented the New World in such loving detail would lose everything he loved in it. The colonists arrived on Roanoke Island on July 22, 1587. Almost immediately, things went wrong. They were supposed to go to the Chesapeake Bay, a much better location with deeper harbors and richer land, but the naval commander refused to take them any further. He dumped them on Roanoke and sailed away. They were stuck on an island that had already failed once, an island where the previous colonists had murdered a native chief, an island where they were not welcome. But they tried. God, they tried. Within a month, two remarkable things happened. First, on August 18, 1587, John White's daughter Eleanor gave birth to a baby girl, Virginia Dare. She was the first English child born in the Americas. Second, the colonists realized they were running out of supplies, fast. Someone had to go back to England for help, and the colonists chose the one person who had the connections and the credibility to get it, John White himself. Now put yourself in his shoes for a moment. Your daughter just gave birth. Your granddaughter is 9 days old, and your people are asking you to get on a ship, cross 3,000 miles of open ocean, and leave them all behind. He didn't want to go. The historical records make that painfully clear. But the colony voted, and on August 27, 1587, John White sailed away from Roanoke. He had no idea he wouldn't come back for 3 years, and he had no idea that when he did, everyone would be gone.
Act 3. The Turning Point. So why did it take 3 years? This is where history becomes almost unbearably cruel. White arrived back in England and immediately started organizing a relief expedition, but the timing could not have been worse. In 1588, King Philip II of Spain launched the Spanish Armada, the largest naval fleet the world had ever seen, to invade England. Queen Elizabeth ordered every available ship into military service. No vessel was allowed to leave for private ventures. Raleigh's colony? It would have to wait. England's survival came first. White was desperate. He managed to get 2 small ships in 1588, but they were attacked by pirates and forced to turn back. He tried again and was blocked. He wrote agonized letters, we still have some of them, begging for help, describing his torment at being separated from his family. But here's what haunts me about this story, and I think it'll haunt you too. While John White was fighting bureaucracy in London, 117 people on a tiny island across the ocean were waiting for him. Every day, they must have looked out at the horizon, hoping to see a sail. Weeks turned to months. Months turned to years. No ship came. What did they do? What decisions did they make? Did they stay? Did they leave? Did they fight? Did they die? We don't know. And that silence, that total, absolute silence, is what makes Roanoke so terrifying.
Act 4. The Return. Finally, in August 1590, 3 years after he left, John White made it back to Roanoke. He hitched a ride with a privateer fleet that agreed to stop at the island. But even this final journey was cursed. A storm nearly sank them. 7 men drowned trying to get to shore in rough surf. But White made it. On August 18, 1590, his granddaughter Virginia Dare's 3rd birthday, he stepped onto the island. The settlement was gone. Not destroyed, dismantled. The houses had been taken down. The fort's palisade was still partially standing, but everything inside was removed. Personal belongings, chests, books, armor, maps were gone or buried and ruined. And there, on a wooden post at the entrance of the palisade, carved in capital letters, Croatoan. On a nearby tree, just 3 letters, C-R-O. Now, White had made an agreement with the colonists before he left. If they moved, they would carve their destination. If they were in danger or forced to leave, they would carve a Maltese cross above the name. There was no cross. White took this as a hopeful sign. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, modern-day Hatteras Island, where a friendly native tribe, the Croatoan people, lived. The colonists had good relations with them. It made sense that they might have relocated there. White desperately wanted to sail to Croatoan Island to search for them, but a massive storm was bearing down on the coast. The ship's captain refused. They had already lost anchors and men. Staying was suicide. The fleet sailed away, and John White never returned to the New World.
He spent the rest of his life, the records suggest he died around 1593, not knowing what happened to his daughter, his granddaughter, or any of the people he had left behind.
Act 5. The Theories and Legacy. So what actually happened to the lost colony? Over 4 centuries, dozens of theories have been proposed. Let me walk you through the most credible ones. Theory 1. They integrated with the Croatoan tribe. This is the theory John White believed, and modern evidence increasingly supports it. The colonists, running out of food and hope, may have simply walked to Croatoan Island and joined the native community there. In the 1880s, researchers found that the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina had members with English surnames, like Dare, Cooper, and Sampson, that matched families in the lost colony. Some had distinctly European features. The Lumbee have long claimed descent from the Roanoke colonists, though this remains debated. In 2012, researchers at the British Museum re-examined one of John White's maps using advanced imaging. They found a hidden patch, a correction White had painted over, that revealed a fort symbol far inland along the Albemarle Sound. This suggests some colonists may have moved to the mainland. Recent archaeological digs at a site called Site X have found English pottery and other artifacts from the right time period. Theory 2. They were killed. Some historians believe the colonists were attacked and killed by hostile native groups, perhaps the Powhatan Confederacy, which controlled much of the region. Captain John Smith, who founded Jamestown in 1607, later claimed that Powhatan Chief Wahun Sanaka have killed the Roanoke survivors. But Smith was a notorious self-promoter, and many historians doubt this account. Theory 3. They tried to sail home and were lost at sea. It's possible some colonists attempted to use a small boat left with them to cross the Atlantic, or at least reach English shipping lanes. If they did, they almost certainly perished. Theory 4. They scattered. The most likely scenario, according to many modern researchers, is that the colony broke apart. Some went to Croatoan, some went inland. Some may have been killed. Some may have been absorbed into different native communities across a wide area. The truth is probably not one single dramatic event, but a slow, desperate scattering of people trying to survive in a world that had forgotten about them. Why it matters. And that's what makes Roanoke so powerful, not just as a mystery, but as a mirror. These were real people, families, parents who brought their children across an ocean because someone promised them a better life. And then the system that sent them there, the government, the investors, the crown, abandoned them. John White's story isn't just a colonial footnote. It's a story about the cost of empire, about the little people who get crushed when big powers play their games, about a father who spent his dying years staring at the ocean, wondering if his granddaughter was alive. Virginia Dare would be 437 years old this year. We don't know if she lived to see her 4th birthday, but we remember her name. We remember all of their names, and maybe that's enough. Maybe the fact that we're still talking about them, still searching for them, means they were never truly lost. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. I cover the forgotten, buried, and hidden stories of American history every week, the ones your textbooks left out. Next day, we're going somewhere even darker. I'll see you there.